We'll let everybody know when we are officially live. Okay, the webinar has officially started and we are live.
Hello. I'll give folks a few minutes to wander on in. If you've got questions, feel free to submit them early in either the Q&A or chat. So this is answers to any crazy Revit question you have. We're gonna try and answer them all in Revit as much as possible. Give folks a minute or two to sign in, so we're starting theoretically on time. All right, I've got 11 o'clock, and with the impending Amazon Web Services outage driving us all crazy with BIM 360 outages, let's get started. Welcome to Answers to Any Crazy Revit Question. This panel came about as a few of us were hanging out after Autodesk University one year, talking about the stupid stuff that we've done for a project or for a client. Like this is a terrible idea, but yeah, sure, we can do that. We're trying to figure out how to make that into a class, and we realized that doing one stupid boutique thing wasn't a good class, but having people ask about that was kind of a fun thing. And we'd been doing going back and forth like, hey, can you do this? How would you do that? And we were getting really cool, crazy stuff, but couldn't put it all together until we're like, well, let's ask people to ask us stupid questions. So re-kicking off in the idea of the vintage Autodesk University Stump the Chumps panel. Here we are. I'm Michael Freard. I'm the BIM manager for Pope Architects in St. Paul, Minnesota. Speaker at Midwest U for a number of years, along with the rest of these hooligans. Goal for this panel is to answer questions focused on just inside of vanilla Revit. We're not looking as much at Dynamo or add-ins. We're looking at just what's the weirdest stuff you can do in Revit. So please start submitting questions, and I'm going to pick Bob to introduce himself while I look at questions as they're coming in.
Hello, I'm Bob Beckbauer. I'm one of the BIM managers at RDG Planning and Design. I'm based primarily out of Omaha. And Michael and I were kind of working on this idea, and it was kind of like a fun idea to do. So. Who do you want next, Michael?
How about whoever's up next? Whoever last spoke picks whoever's next. That way you can't blame me.
I'll go to on my screen to my left is John, so we'll go to the left. We'll go to the left.
All right. I'm John Atkinson, National Engineering BIM Manager for DLR Group. Happy to be here.
And who do you pick next, John?
Let's go, Vicky.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vicky Patel, Vicky Harris now. I am with HKS, the firm-wide BIM leader, and I'm based out of our Dallas office. And I'm excited to answer any of your questions. And just one thing to note, there is no stupid question. All your questions are very, very valid. We're here to answer them so that you don't feel stupid about having that question. So again, no stupid question. So put them in the Q&A. We're ready to answer. And I will pick Danya.
Hi, this is Donya's turn. My name is Danya Tabor Hansen. I work with Trimark USA, which we do kitchen designs. I specialize in Revit families, building them, making them intelligent. I do schedules, I do templates, I do customization. And that's been what I've put my hat on for the last 8 years with this company. And I will pass it to Sean.
Sean Zerbis here. I am the Director of BIM Development at CTC Software. My focus primarily is workflow optimization. And I generally know a little bit about families as well as a whole bunch of other things. And focus a lot on automation of workflow optimization when possible, if possible. Michael, back to you, sir.
All right, so I did some back of the napkin math, and I believe amongst the 6 of us, we have almost a century of Revit experience here. So hopefully we can answer 1 or 2 questions. First up, I'm throwing this one to Bob and Vicky. If the 2 of you don't have a brilliant solution, throw it back to the rest of the panel. Or if you do, or if somebody else has something to weigh in on, run with that. What's the best way to have notes at the bottom of the schedule?
That's a good question. I was hoping that Danya would answer that one because she's a kind of the schedules person.
I was going to say the same. I wonder if she has some tricks up her sleeve to make that happen.
I just use text.
Yeah, I was going to say, so schedules allows you to modify the headers, right? So you can kind of modify those and put non-schedule information in there, but Autodesk has not added anything to be able to do that to the bottom of the schedule. So if you have text that is going to repeat on multiple pages where your schedules are at, I would create a legend with that text on it and then just place it below the schedule on every sheet. But unfortunately, Autodesk currently has not offered a solution to do what you could do with the header of a schedule to the footer of a schedule, if you will.
Right. And I'm hitting up, a lot of people are putting questions in chat. Please move your questions to the question panel so that we can keep them in order. You'll notice down on the bottom of the screen, there's a question, there's a Q&A and there's a chat.
I'd like to jump in and answer just a little bit of that as well. That schedule, the text at the bottom of a schedule. We've seen some pretty interesting techniques people have come up with over the years. You know, Vicky had a good example, a legend or drafting view at the bottom of a schedule can work. The trick is they don't snap to each other, and so they don't line up super clean. We saw somebody who made a key schedule with random keys in a random category that they're not using, and they just put 1 key value into it and put their notes, or actually maybe multiple key values into it for the numbered notes. And then that can actually snap to the bottom of a schedule and snap width-wise, height-wise, and you can format it like it's its own mini schedule.
I've used key schedules, but I've never used it for that. That's great.
Yeah, I've never done that, but that's a pretty good workaround.
It is absolutely a workaround, but you know, that's what this is all about, right?
It's probably the best workaround, I would say, in terms of if you're trying to keep things smart and connected. Because as you said, yeah, the legend or the drafting view will not snap. And so if you move a schedule or something adjusts, you'll have to go back to the sheet and readjust that. So.
Yep.
Yeah, and we just add our notes up in the header. We just make a block in the header.
And to follow on with what Vicky said earlier, there are no stupid questions, but sometimes you feel dumb for asking them. And sometimes you're like, I know this is a bad idea. I know I shouldn't do this. How do I do this? That's where I was going with the stupid questions there. Like there are ways that it can be like, this doesn't seem like something I should do. Feel free to ask those too. So this is a fun one. I'm going to throw at Sean and John. I would like Revit text to right and left justify as text as a book a publisher does when typically printing a book. It would certainly give nicer looking note groups. Short of using spaces in the middle of the text there, I've got no idea on that one. You guys?
I would have to have a little bit more detail on this, because is this within the same multi-line text box, or is this 2 separate text boxes put side by side? Because that's what I would do. I would put 2 text boxes side by side, 1 left justified, 1 right justified, so that I can have them, and then I can leader off of each of them independently on either side if need be. But if it's within the same text box, I'd love that too, but then I'd love better bullet pointing and better indenting and better all kinds of things in the multi-line text box before I get that, personally. But
My
that
question
go ahead.
here would be is, why are we trying to print something like a book publisher from Revit? So it sounds like you're trying to print like a spec book or something that, you know, when you fold and it prints like a book. Why does it have to be out of Revit? Would be my question. I think this is one of those places where that may not be the use of Revit you want, and you may use something like InDesign or Microsoft Word. So yeah, I think I have additional questions on that as well.
All right.
I have, oh, no, I can't
yeah,
say that.
go.
Never mind. Nope, I can't. I had to think back to what you said earlier about only doing what's natively core in Revit. I can't answer that without something
'cause
external from Revit.
there's stuff we can do, but we want to try and stick to
vanilla.
that.
Yep.
No, my computer does not want to reboot now. Sorry. Random. There's an update. Is there a good procedure for forming load calculations and energy analysis inside of Revit that allows you to easily edit canned properties? I'm going to toss that one at Donnie and Vicky.
What? What?
Is there a good
Heating and
procedure
cooling
for-
loads.
Tanya doesn't do heating and cooling loads.
All right. All right. So, John, you
Yeah.
that question meant something to you. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. As long as you've got your spaces and things set up appropriately, then yes, your heating and cooling loads inside Revit, native inside Revit, are actually really good. They're pretty close. Then there's a whole GBXML export workflow. I've covered in some of the sessions that I've given at AU. And
so related to that, I'm going to jump ahead since you just mentioned it. How can you get interior walls to appear in a GBXML export?
they
Mark them
should
as an exterior
automatically.
wall.
They should, without any tricks.
And
Yeah,
then they did show up.
They'll show up as a analytical surface.
Okay,
Or should.
that was what I thought. Maybe they're missing something here. So to keep on our probably on our John run here, we'll go with John and maybe Bob. How do you do electrical single line diagrams? Can it be intelligent and actual parameters?
Well, there's no really good way of doing it. One of the workarounds I've done is created single line tags and created an elevation, tagged all my elements so that it'll pull the parameters, and then used conduit on a design option to attach them graphically.
The annotation tags actually works pretty well for this. Now, as John mentioned, it is not truly parametric because you're not designing your one line first and then doing your building afterward. You're doing your building model first and getting a one line as a derivative of that. So it doesn't necessarily flow. It's almost more of a riser in some cases, but you can achieve some pretty good things. John actually was one of the first I had seen ever do that. And it's a pretty boss workflow when you use it right.
Thanks. There are some good third-party add-ins, SKM, Design Master, ePower, a couple of those other ones that can generate one lines for you, but we're supposed to keep it in Revit.
All right, so let's go with maybe Bob and Donnie on this one. Any way to eliminate the zoomed out to infinity view when isolating elements in the section box tool? Looks like there are mystery grips that extend all the way off into space and force you to zoom in to see the items you're going inside.
Nope, not that I know of. I mean, it'd be nice if it wouldn't. I would hate having to try to find stuff after I zoomed the way out.
Donnie, you're muted.
Danya, you're muted.
I hate it when I do it
That was a
myself.
wonderful answer. Thank you. Moving on.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful.
And I hate it when you're in families and you hit to a different view and it zooms out. And so it's a little bit dot up there also. And the thing I know, it's just ZA.
One thing I've done is create a view template that has a lot of stuff turned off other than actual model elements. So CAD references, levels, grids, kind of everything that might be extended really, really far out there that, you know, your landscape architect put some trees on the moon. You hide all that stuff and then apply that to the view template, then zoom extents, and that turning off the common problems for that can help. And then you have to reset to your other view template. But and you can make a view template of your existing view, switch to your cleanup view, and then switch back. So you don't, if you didn't have a view template to start with, that'll keep you from getting
I
lost.
was gonna say along that same line, you could have a view that's already set with everything already off, and you just could go to that and pick the element. Select previous should help you as well, and then I said it, then hopefully it would stay just to the where you were at.
And again, I know we're trying to stick to solutions within Revit, but I do think it's important for individuals to know that these kind of things, there is plugins. So we in-house have created a plugin that once you have an object selected, it will zoom directly into it. It's basically zoom selected. So it zeroes into it. So again, not native to Revit, but if you have an app developer or want to get into something like that, that is something you can do within the API.
There's a bunch of add-ins that'll do that. I think I've got 2 or 3 on just that have come from various suites of things. I'm not sure what this means, but Vicky and John, I'm going to throw this one at you. How do you make doors and windows for battered walls? If someone in the person who submitted that wants to explain what battered walls are, because I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what battered walls are.
Well, I just Googled battered walls, and all I came up was an image of a wall that was sloping, which you know, in 2022, it'll natively now put the wall in, the door and window in, and make it, you know, it puts a wall that's, you know, 90 degrees to that wall, so it's up and down, you know, it stays straight up and down. If not in 2022, the way I've been doing something, if truly a battered wall is a sloping wall, we just cut the wall at the door space and make, you know, regular non-sloping walls and put them on in there, and then put the door in there, and usually try to make, it's a pain to edit later, but you make the wall the same size as the door frame, and so it disappears, so you don't see it. But you kind of got to look at it from the contractor side and the real world side. How would they build a door in that world? And if the wall is sloping, they're going to build a perpendicular wall to put the door in. They're not going to put it in a sloping wall.
Yeah.
At least you hope your contractor doesn't. If he does, you've got an issue with the contractor. But
yeah, I think windows may, you know, or is something that could be in a sloping wall, right? You know, you could have a sloping wall, but as Bob just said, in 2022, that is a built-in functionality of Revit, and now you can host a window in it, and you can tell it to follow the slope, or you can tell it to be perpendicular, and it will kind of notch it out. So Revit 2021 allowed you to angle the wall, but 2022 now allows you to create that tapered wall. But as Bob said, if it's a door, then you definitely want to build out that, because you're not going to have a door that's, I mean, that might be cool. If you're designing a building like that, I might want to go check it out. But yeah, windows is the only thing I can see that would go to a slope.
All right. For Dania and Sean, how can you have 2 text colors in a text box? I don't know that you can.
I was just trying that and I'm like, no, that sounds great. I could not get that to work. I've been over here testing that one in particular. And I couldn't get it.
You can get it in a schedule in the header when you manipulate the schedule text in a header, but you can't do it in a text box. That I can tell.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not a crazy way to do it. It is a crazy way to do it. Make a schedule header, do all the weird formatting stuff you can do in that, and plop it in there.
And by the way, for notes like that, when you do make that schedule, you don't make a schedule header. right?
Right.
You make a schedule and you filter it heavily so that you maybe do a generic model schedule, and you make the generic model schedule so that it shows everything that has a mark value that is not nothing and everything that has a mark value that is nothing. So it basically shows you nothing because it can't be both. And that's how you get nothing in the schedule, and then you can just screw around with the header. We hijack that a lot on the API side to do cool formatting things.
Yeah, but it depends on how you're also, I mean, because you can use text to describe a lot of things, but if you're trying to use text to describe something in plan, then that's gonna, the schedule is gonna get a little complicated. So
Yeah,
I would say if you're trying to, have different colors and it's, something that you need to flag, so the text looks red, hopefully it's something that can tie back to something parametric. So, we do it all the time in space planning plans where, the area is red if it's over programmed or under programmed. So there are ways to do that, but it just has to be intelligent. But again, it depends on how you're using the text. I think the schedule idea is great, but if you're trying to show it on plans, then that's going to get a little complicated because you can't plot that schedule in a plan view. You have to.
Well, you can do the really bad practice of dropping one view on top of another view.
Right. Which I was going to say that's possible, but that's very complicated.
Sorry, I almost got coffee out of Dania's nose. I'll have to try harder. So John and Bob, has anyone designed a way for depth queuing to actually work? The computer displayed printed sheets and PDFs do not look the same. I've not run into that glitch other than like minor graphical queuings of translation between different resolutions and like changing between different formats, and as much as what you see in a raster view is not going to be the same as printed on paper. But
Well, being mostly engineering, we don't deal with depth queuing very often.
I've worked with it. I build it into the view template. So if I find something that works, and then usually tries to make them all look the same. But as far as printed sheets and PDFs, that's almost a computer thing, I would think. But
yeah, I would say that partially it's, making sure your line weights are synchronized with the plotters that you're using, and those line weights are really representing what they do on screen. But another thing, so depth queuing is great, but we always encourage our project teams to instead use the line type override so that they're manually going in and specifying those line weights so that they have better control. Again, when you use that tool, it stays with the geometry. So if you change the height or the width or of the wall, it's not like you got to go back and redraw it. It's a lot better control. But yeah, I think depth queuing, I think to answer the question, it might be just a synchronization of your line weights with the actual printers in your office.
The way I've found depth queuing to be useful is to set it to almost nothing, so you just have a hint of what's beyond and to really focus on the foreground. Otherwise, it's what Vicky just said of line weight overrides is much cleaner. Constraining schedules so that as they grow, other schedules move down. I'm guessing that means multiple schedules on a sheet so that when you, because of I'm assuming filtering reasons to get particular chunks in. Let's throw that one to Dania and Sean.
John's over there grinning. What did you have to say? You have something on that.
This is a question that we have been asked multiple times on how this can be done. We've tried to figure out if there's a way to do it. Natively in Revit, there is not.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a way to do it with some like API type calls, but there's nothing I have ever seen in Revit that will allow you to constrain one schedule to the other.
Yeah, so in 2022, the one benefit you have is you can take one big schedule and split it across multiple sheets. And then that will do exactly what you're hoping to do, but it's within one schedule. So if you have a door schedule and a room schedule on one sheet, the door schedule growing isn't going to shift the room schedule. But,
and I think that this specifically relates to the suggestion we had made earlier where we were talking about using an extra schedules header as the note section. there just isn't an elegant way of binding the two together to make it easy. You will have to go do some manual sheet management and checking prior to a plot.
Yeah, because you got to realize those are views.
Those are views.
And yeah, they're not a dynamic annotation of some sort. They're views.
You could potentially make a Dynamo script to automatically do that, but
Right.
Yeah,
In
and
my spare time.
if you counted the instances in a schedule to pull the rows out, you could use that to drive the Dynamo to adjust the height and
Well,
relocate your views. But that's
The view also reports its physical dimensions on sheets. So you could leverage that as well if that was the route
yep.
you wanted to go.
That'll be more accurate than the lines because you may get some double stacked
Overlapping.
lines. Yeah.
Yeah, overlapping text. Okay, yeah.
Does Revit export directly to Trimble for shooting hanger insert points?
I can answer that one. No, no, it does not. But I can tell you that there are, again, there was a comment I saw in the chat that said, if Revit can't do it, but there's an add-in that can, please at least mention it. There are a number of add-ins that do that, that are very focused on point exporting to different types of data collectors. Usually it's related to the data collector itself. They have their own Revit add-ins. But in Revit natively itself, there really isn't a solid way of doing that. There are a couple of ways using other add-ins that are not Trimble, but that's all add-in related, right? You could do Dynamo, you could do some, like an Excel type add-in to get the XYZ positions of things. You could do, there's a lot of ways you could do it, but not natively in the core vanilla Revit that we've seen.
All right. Is it possible to filter a schedule to only show elements shown within views placed on a given sheet?
I think we were talking about this the other day, Michael, weren't we?
We were, yeah. And
I don't know of a way.
Yeah.
Schedules don't dynamically read what's on the sheet.
No.
The only way I can think of from noodling back on our conversation is set and build an instance parameter into everything you wanted to schedule in a view on that sheet. Select visible in view of that type. Manually set that to the sheet A102. Sean's got a question.
I have potentially a partial answer.
Oh.
I'm in Revit 2019 right now, and I wanted to check this because I thought this was a thing. You can right click on schedules and quantities in 2019 and do a new view list. And the view list does facilitate the ability to indicate the sheet name and sheet number, and even the view number, I believe. The view name, detail number maybe is one of the things, whatever. You can know what view or what sheet a view is on. You could then likely filter it based on that as well. I haven't gone deep enough to double check that, but you can schedule views and you can filter by views that are on sheets or not on sheets. We use that a lot to find views that are not placed on sheets.
Yeah, but wait a minute. If you're filtering for that view being on the sheet, can you filter to schedule the equipment of that view?
Oh, I'm sorry. The equipment of a view. I'm sorry.
Right.
I thought the question was view on a sheet, not the equipment within the view. No, that you cannot.
Yeah, so
you can use a
Not without-
project parameter
You could use a
and
project
then-
parameter.
and then Dynamo script to read the elements, read the view that the element is in, and then populate the parameter.
Right.
Well, we also do like Michael was saying, do a parameter that maybe tells what it's related to. Like we've got a project right now. We want all the things in the 240 or the 224, the 226 schedule, and we just put a parameter in there that is a project parameter, and we schedule that and then turn that off in the schedule. That's the only way I know to filter them out is by adding a parameter in there to it. And of course, you can right click and go get all your information or your equipment and assign that parameter to them. Then the schedule works. So that's the only way I know.
By the way, can I highlight a comment that one of our viewers added in, that they wish that Autodesk would attend these types of sessions to see how badly Revit needs improvement? I second that. There are some core things that would be really nice if it was easier in our main design app.
Yes.
Well, and we've got the recording, so we can go
Yeah.
through and submit these. Like this is
The new wish list.
yep, exactly. Oops, I did not mean to delete that question. Control Z, delete that. There we go. All right. So scrolling back up, showing an existing, we've got, let's see, 15 questions queued. So we're pushing time. So let's try and knock these out in like a minute each if we can. Showing an existing door for the door width and height parameters in an otherwise normal door schedule, i.e. so we can call out that it needs to be repainted or placed without committing to knowing the size. So putting some dummy data overriding the data there. Dania or Bob?
By the way, I know that we've just made, I've actually made a key schedule that's just dummy for the doors that existing we knew. But I don't know of any other way to say, you know, door size and that, if you're gonna have it. Now, we've done it where you have a schedule that's only existing doors and you turn off the width and height and this, let it say existing, and then put in the door number and then the finishes. But if you have it inside of the other ones where you're reporting width and dill, I don't think you can.
Not unless you put a formula in there that, you can put a formula in there that decides what your panel size is what I'm reading. So they're asking about panel size.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
put a formula in there as to what your panel size would be and add that to the schedule.
Yep. Doing a formula that
You can do that inside the schedule.
if existing, report this text instead of report that text, or that length instead of that. You just have to make the length.
Mhm.
It's a couple steps to get that conversion.
Yeah, I was just doing that on the side to see if that was possible. The only thing you cannot do is report the actual built-in phase created or phase demolished of a door. So you will have to have your own custom parameter for that. But if
Right.
you mark it as existing, which you'd probably want to do anyway for other graphical changes,
Yes.
then you can do the calculated technique that Danya was describing, which I think is a great way to do it, because you could then show the width value, or you could show some other text value, which also works really good for ceiling heights.
You don't have to do that in each door family. You can do it inside the schedule by adding a formula in the schedule.
Right.
Yep.
Dania and I had a chunk on that in our schedules class earlier this year.
Yeah.
Bob and Vicky, can you separate roof materials in sections similar to wall modifications? Currently, we're having to create one roof for the finish and one roof for the structure.
So I think when you create layers within the roof, well, I know you can set layers to varies, and that can create like the sloping material for the insulation, then you can have your structure there. But if you're talking about how in wall you can go in and kind of cut and slice, you know, different materials, I don't think that that is currently possible in the roof. I'd have to mess around with it. But if your goal is to show that your structure is straight, but your roof membrane, whatever that is angled, then you would set that layer to be variable, and then that will slope. But just keep in mind that that material will be solid sloping. There's not going to be a gap in between the structure and that material for you to fill in with something. Bob, you.
I would be doing the same thing you just said. I mean, I'd have to play with it to make sure, but I don't know no other way.
Yeah, I'll second that. There's no split of the material along the face of the roof, but you can show the different layers. That's just detail level. And so perhaps if you hadn't seen that, because what I heard was show the structure separate from the finish, which to me sounds like a detail level potential question. It could be that there's a view template set or a category option set to force roofs to be a lower detail level, perhaps in that person's model. But natively, you should be able to show the layers, whatever they are.
All right, John and Dania, what's the best way to create a text that appears on screen but does not print like Jeff points in AutoCAD?
I wanted to avoid that one.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there looking at that one like, I don't know of anything that will do that unless you have it in your working view, and when you change to print, that is turned off.
Yeah, we have a plugin that basically we've added. When you have the plugin on, it's looking for certain words or abbreviations. And so if you tag that text, like text type, and you put NPLT, it goes through the model and looks for everything that's NPLT, temporarily turns it off, and then lets you print and then turns it back on. But it's a plugin. There's no depth points, no print layer in Autodesk Revit.
I was thinking maybe a filter that would look for a specific text type. So
Yeah.
if you make
Yeah, that's what that plugin
Yeah.
does.
designer notes and
I've
Yeah.
got a worse idea. You
Okay.
set your Revit view display to not be a white background. You set it to something blue or black like we used to do in AutoCAD. And then you set a text type color to, I believe it's 001 color. So it's almost white. When it prints out on sheet, it will print out white on a white piece of paper. The text is still there. It's selectable in a PDF, but it is not visible for when it's actually printed, and most people will not notice it. But when you're in a Revit view, you'll see it because the background's false.
Also a really good way to watermark your stuff.
Yep. You can bury text in weird places to do that with that.
It's also a really good way to screw with your coworkers when they do Zoom all.
Yes. It's
You're all welcome.
Or if you have a coworker who you know uses a weird color background because they like to do that, you can add text. You can make a text thing specifically for them that they can't find. It's great. How to change single text to M text in Revit 2018 and Revit 2020. Copy and paste works, but it's very painful. I created a Dynamo script, but it didn't quite work. I'm assuming this is importing or converting AutoCAD details into Revit. John and Dania.
I fix it in AutoCAD first. And then I
think
copy and paste it. Yeah, I have a tendency to just fix it in AutoCAD first and then copy and paste it in. I hate
yeah,
having to do that.
unless there's fractions in the text, and then it splits it up into
yeah.
4 or 5 different text boxes.
Yeah, that's the one bad thing about importing AutoCAD details is having to clean up all the text and the dimensions.
And the leaders.
And the leaders, yeah. That's part
And
of
the fill patterns.
Yeah.
Basically, everything about importing AutoCAD is terrible. So don't do it.
So
Don't do it.
related to that one, I'm going to jump ahead to another one that I was going to throw at Sean and myself because I've been poking around with it recently. Recently, I've read that Autodesk has made improvements to importing CAD in Revit 2022. It's more stable and doesn't cause as many issues. Is it still a bad idea to import CAD into Revit, or is it more stable and acceptable now? My understanding is that the imports cleaned up but didn't fix how Revit deals with floating point math. So it is still a bad idea, and you should feel horrible and you are a bad person if you import CAD.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a pretty bold statement that I will second.
Yes.
I'll add a little bit to that, okay, if I may. Because someone's going to say, I have to import AutoCAD. You do in some cases. You will have to. The reality is you will. Don't do it. You're a bad person if you do it in a real live project model.
Yes.
That's where it's bad. If you do it into a throwaway model and you spend a little bit of time cleaning it up, and then you transfer that view into a live project, go for it. Do
Totally
a good
awesome.
job cleaning it up.
Yep.
Don't do it into your template. Don't do it into your master details file. Don't ever do it into a live project. Then you're okay. But yes, Revit 2022 is better, but like Michael said, it's still not good. It's still not safe.
Revit, the way Revit handles that math just isn't there for better and worse. It makes a lot of what we do much faster because it doesn't need to, but bad things happen. And yes, we all have to import CAD. It happens, but do it through a cleaner file. Do it through whether you're spinning up a family file to open up and drop it into there and then copy out that line work, or a whole new cleanup project. Totally cool. But yeah, don't bring it directly into your project or into your families, because then it gets buried and the problems get worse. When creating a section, before opening the section, I can control the depth of the section in the properties palette using far clip offset. Is there a way to control the height? I'm working on a 53-story building, and when I create a section on level 12 and it opens up and it displays all 53 floors. I don't think there is. I think it's just defined by where the section starts and the levels that are cropped there. But Vicky and John, any ideas?
I've never figured it out.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the only ways is a scope box, but that would mean that you'd have to create a scope box for either every level, if that's what you're trying to limit it to, or different ones. So when you create that schedule, the first, or not schedule, section, the first thing you do is assign a scope box to it, and then that will reduce the height as long as you control the 3D height of it. I think again, it just picks up what those levels are. So yeah, unfortunately, that's where Revit tries to be smart and says, oh, you're cutting a section here, so you want to see the whole extent of it, when in reality you don't.
All right. What is the best way to have numbering and indenting in text, similar to AutoCAD, like in the large general notes? Donnie and Bob.
Can't you do that in 2019? Right now, formatting? Or 2020, you know, you could, there you can go up and select, and it's not good,
better.
but it does it.
I was gonna say it's better, but that's not saying a lot.
Don't y'all still use schedules for that? So you go your numbering lined up on the left and your notes lined up, no, numbers lined up to the right, your notes lined up to the left, and set them side by side.
I
That's
use
how we do
schedules
it.
for a lot of stuff like that. Abbreviation lists are all.
Oh yeah, abbreviation
schedule.
lists, notes, all of them like that, because if you have to move them, they're a lot easier to manipulate than text.
Right.
See, I do all my
Creating key
anything that's
schedules.
got to be numbered is going to be in a schedule.
Right. Key schedules with multi-line text.
Yeah, schedules are a woefully underrated thing here. We've got 20 minutes left to keep slugging through here. We try to have tickler notes in our template to help users know and remind them what to do. This requires that people actually delete them, which isn't always what we want to do at the time if they haven't been able to clean it up. So how might you have something functionally like a no plot layer? We sort of talked about that one. I've seen it done ways the global parameter to toggle things off and on. I'm going to say that we've used those at Pope and found the frustration is that people see them, grab them and delete them so that they don't show up for QA review, and then knowing that they'll pick it up after that because it's a partial QA review, and then it forgets to get picked up. So Sean and Vicky, we're moving away from that and dealing with it in other ways. Ways to actually get those ticklers in.
Yeah, so again, there's not really a no plot layer, no plot functionality. Again, similar to the text comment, we have a plugin that, again, any object within your Revit model, if it has a certain text, the project team can specify it. So you can put no plot, and all of your families or all of your text boxes that are supposed to be there just for your visual, for somebody to make sure they do something. If they're assigned that abbreviation in the name of it, if you have that plugin on, it won't print those. Similar to what you just said with the global parameter, it's the same functionality. We just, something is going in and turning all of that off before you print.
Now, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's also a discussion point here, I think, that we should hit on that talks about actual workflow of project startup, because what I think I heard Michael say was at project startup, we want these notes to give some instructions. So if your project template or starter project, whatever you want to call it, is set up right, I'll air quote that, you probably or may very well have some like project setup sections or elevations, some project setup floor plans, a project setup like starting view. Those aren't going to go on sheets anyway. So annotate the snot out of them, because you want to give them instructions. Maybe even have a project startup checklist schedule. We've been talking about schedules, but anything that you'd have pre-existing in a template, I think Sean's point of view is that it is stuff that probably isn't all ready to print, and you're gonna set up a real project after that. So your instruction sheets, put instructions wherever you want there, as long as they're not in production views, because they wouldn't be anyway.
We're moving towards that. I mentioned that we were using those tickler notes. We're now putting links from those prototype sheets, hyperlinks back out to our BIM manual that has here's what a typical one looks like. Here's how you do these things. Here's the QA notes. Here's the BIM team notes, so you know what content to include and how to do it as two different things. Because you may know what the content is, but you may not know how to do it, or you may not need that content, but you want to know what we actually want to be documenting. Is it possible to create labels for room tags and sheets with parametric lines? Currently, we have to create duplicate types depending on the length of the label. I've made the
Bob's
actually,
grinning
Donnie,
over there. No, Bob's grinning over there.
I was going to throw this one to Sean and Vicky. Vicky shaking her head. Bob's grinning. Let's give this one to Bob.
I'd love to. It'd be great if you could, do them and not have to have duplicate ones. You could shrink them, bend them down. Keynotes would be another thing you could do. It'd be great. But, so far that I know of, Revit doesn't allow us to do it. You have to make different ones. You can't, I want to make this box smaller.
Yep. Yeah. If you want to box around any type of annotation, it's not going to resize itself based on the text in it, unfortunately.
Thankfully, recent versions of Revit have made it so you can at least preview what that's going to look like. So when you have multiple, tags stacked in a single family in an annotation environment, it makes it easier. But there really isn't a good way around it. There's no like put a box around my text option that I've noticed in text boxes like there should be.
Yeah.
Autodesk.
Well, there's the text formatting with a box, but that's a different problem. Is there a way to copy RVT link view template settings between view templates? Not talking about unchecking links in each view template, but applying a link view template to each view.
Could you repeat that?
Sure.
I don't think I fully followed the question.
Is there a way to copy? I'm going to try and paraphrase this. Is there, and the person who submitted it, I've scrolled past, but if they want to correct this in chat or in another new question, is there a way to copy the view template settings for linked files between view templates? Not just unchecking links in each view template, but actually the settings within the view template per linked object. I'd flagged Bob and Danya for that. Anybody else have a?
Well, if I understand this right, they would have, if you went into a link view and say your floor plan setting, and you set it to custom, so it turns certain things on and off, they want to be able to copy that to another view template. And the only way, if the view template is existing, I don't think you can, I don't know a way to do it. If it wasn't, then I think you could duplicate the view template and it would cake the settings, but then you'd have, but if it's an existing one that's already there, I don't think you can copy from between the two. Now,
but if it's in a linked file, I don't know of a way of getting it from that linked file inside the project I'm in. But if I can get to that file, I can transfer project standards.
Yeah, I think the question really is related to, like, I've set up a floor plan view and it's got link settings, and now I want to apply that maybe to my ceiling plan view template as well, because I have links in my model. And there isn't a way right now to copy settings from one view template to another in native vanilla Revit, but there are with customization.
We got a little bit of clarification. Duplicate works, but my view templates are existing. I think what might work is to, in your current view, in a current version of the target view template, create a new view in your desired host view template, make a new view template that is only those linked elements. Save that as a new view template, so you have a view template that will only apply your link settings. Open up your a view with your target view settings on it. Switch to overwrite with the host view template, so you've overwritten only those. Take that view, recreate a new, save as a new version of your old view template. So you'll only be overwriting those link settings. That might.
Another thing to do, which some of our teams do, is in your view template, you have one view template that's the master view template applied to the view, and that view template has nothing to do with Revit links. Then they create another view template that's just with the Revit links, and they come in and apply that on top. In that Revit links one, everything else is turned off. So all that secondary view template is doing is modifying the Revit links.
Yep.
That works, except you just have to have somebody that makes sure that they come back and apply that Revit link secondary template to that view before printing, or else those settings won't apply because again, it's not a master view template for those views.
Would you do with filters too?
You can do that with anything.
I mean,
Because you can check and uncheck what's included in the properties that are actually applied or persistently applied.
Yeah.
And you can mix and match those to apply a couple of collections of settings. And then, like Michael said, if you wanted to, you could ultimately take that view and save that back as a view template, overriding one that was already there, even if you wanted to, so that it maybe would persistently apply a bunch more things. There's a couple of techniques there, but there isn't an automated way to do this in Revit. There's a workaround, very workaroundy way to do it. And you're muted again, Danya.
The clock was chiming.
Yeah.
And to counter something that Vicki said, or to add to it rather, she said make sure they go back before they print and reset something. That's why we have working template view templates and print view templates, so that you can have the two of them. So you can have it set in one. And that is until somebody goes and edits their working view template to make it look like a print, and then all bets are off. Yeah, that happened this week.
All right. We've got 10 minutes left, so we're going to try and squeeze a couple more. If I can get my dual mice here in the right spot. Couple more questions in. We've got 10 questions left. How do you set the starting scale for a new view that does not have a view template applied in the view type? John and Vicki.
I actually want to take the next question.
Well, that is a setting. So if you, for like floor plan and RCP, and even sections and elevations, in that view type within your template, if you go in and set those, or whenever you create a new one and then you set it, it will then remember that setting and do the next one at that scale. So it's all about how you create your view template.
But
not your view template, your Revit template, sorry.
Your Revit template, yep.
Yes.
Any way to incorporate legend components into Revit schedules? Donnie and Bob.
Come on, I wanted that one.
John wanted that one.
John wanted that. Okay, John, you're up.
All right. So one of the things that we do is we've moved away from using legend views altogether. And we use a floor plan view with all of the elements for our symbols placed, and then you can schedule those.
Are you using that in a annotation phase?
No, we're actually using a design option.
Okay.
Design option configured with the primary being empty and the secondary being the one that actually shows the legend stuff.
Yep.
But then,
Exactly.
yeah, you have full control over objects like you natively normally would.
Yep.
And dimensionability and taggability. Everything that a legend should offer.
So that floor plan shows up in your floor plan list?
With a view template, most likely that would group it appropriately, just like all your other floor plans would group themselves. You'd have some kind of a classification on it so that it's easily navigable. But yes, it's a floor plan.
Yeah, I'd like, if I had something like that, I'd like to have it where it could be away from the floor plan so that someone doesn't go in there and go rogue.
Get clever with your browser organization.
Yeah, browser.
It's a browser organization thing, or yeah, there's a couple things there.
Yep.
How do I keep my collaborated models running fast? I'm a mechanical drafter and use fabrication parts. What affects performance? Number of views, sheets, links, views and links, work sets, family, etc. John and Sean.
I'll jump in first and let John correct everything that I get wrong on this one. The biggest thing that affects your performance is number of instance parameters and number of instances. The second major thing is, well, I should say the biggest thing is DWG imports. Just don't do it. We already talked about that. But then it's instance parameters, number of instances, and how many formulas you have on those instance parameters. Types can also play an effect. And thirdly, the next thing is just how detailed the content itself is. Your comment was specifically on fabrication parts, and so there I'm going to stop and let John jump in and talk about fabrication parts because I have less experience there.
Right. Well, the fabrication parts, they're pretty detailed. So if you can kind of dumb your views down as much as possible, that's going to help speed things up. But keeping your families and other content as light as possible before you convert to fab parts is probably gonna be the easiest way. I found the biggest performance hit in number of views and number of sheets. Those were the big ones that once we started purging those out for unnecessary things, then the models sped up quite a bit.
Yeah, there's actually two other things that I failed to mention. Drafting views are a big sink because all those individual line items are individual instances that increases your instance count and text objects. Unused views, as John mentioned, is big, but also the best way that I've found beyond the general clean stuff is to make sure that you're properly organizing your models work sets so you can partially open models and not have to have the weight of everything. You don't need everything open, don't open everything, right? Then that just makes everything faster because you're loading less into memory.
And I'd
Yeah, we
also
don't
add
Go ahead.
warnings. If you've got things that are, just hitting it, causing warnings, then Revit is having to process that and try to figure out what it's doing. So definitely want to stay on top of your warnings and resolve all those.
And as
Right.
kitchens, we're always working with someone else's model. And if I don't have to work on their live model, give me a copy of it, let me clean it up and purge out everything I can, and I'll run faster. But if I have to be working in their live model, I'm gonna find me a lot slower process going on. So it's cleaning up those linked files if you can, but sometimes we can't. Sometimes we have to stay live with them.
So we've got, I think, time for one more here. I'm going to throw this one to Vicky and Bob to start. In putting together demolition RCPs, we wanted the existing ceiling that was being demolished to show up dashed and couldn't easily get it to work. This is the 2x2 and 2x4 ceiling grids, getting those lines to show up dashed. Ended up creating a demo ceiling, separate ceiling type that we manipulated to have those lines dashed in the grid. Do you guys have a workaround for that?
So I would have to say that you need to check your demographics. That's not demographics, but you have graphic settings for whenever you demo stuff and depending on what phase it's on. So I would check that. I can't remember exactly, but if you're trying to show, like you said, the grid lines within it, I do believe you can control that too. I could be wrong. I am not in Revit to mess around with it. But I would start with the graphics built into Revit. But yeah, if you're trying to show the grid lines as dashed and the graphics don't allow that, then instead of creating a family, I would probably use the line type override to make that happen, just because it seems quicker and you probably only had one or two instances of that instead of creating a whole nother family.
Yeah, I would either use, the times I've had to do it, I've either used line type override, or I've actually selected the demo ceilings and did right click override and view and then changed it. I haven't been able to find a way to globally make them go show dashed because it's usually ceilings are a hatch pattern and you can't change hatch patterns without changing the pattern itself. It isn't the best way, but the one we've been using a lot lately is just right click, override in graphics and view, and then change it that way. It's not as easy, but it seems to work for what we want.
Somebody just posted in the chat that using a filter to do similar to what you just mentioned, Bob, is something that they've done. So.
Filter works if everything is getting demoed. I've had problems where you have like one or two ceilings getting demoed and not all of them, and that getting exciting. So that is, we've got a hard stop at noon. We got 3 minutes left. Thanks everybody. We got through, I believe, 29 questions. I may have gotten through that, which is not too bad. This was a boatload of fun. Thank you, ATG, for hosting us. This is an absolute blast. And if you've got other questions, John, there was a question for you in the chat about your links.
Yep.
I also saw a comment to Danya specifically about wanting to connect on kitchen design and kitchen techniques later after the thing.
I'll just drop my email in the chat. I don't care.
I was going to say, if anybody wants answers to further questions, they can find us on LinkedIn or.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, or we can do a part two.
Yeah,
we could do a part two. I'd be all about it.
I'd be more than
Having
happy
fun for it.
to do a part two. That'd be great. And again, reach out to I think any of us on LinkedIn or find other ways. We're on various social things, or reach out to ATG for email. I'm sure they'd be happy to pass along messages for us. Thank you all. This was a boatload of fun, and we'll have to talk with ATG about when we can run another one.
Next
Thank
time
you,
we come
everyone.
on this, then we can't talk about it.
And we will invite Autodesk for part two. We've got a bunch of us know folks there, so we can certainly reach out to them. Yeah, I'll toss my email in the chat here too.
It's been great. It's been fun.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is
Absolutely.
great.
Y'all, thank you so
Done.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.